Welcome to episode 3 of the Flame and Fiber podcast. My name is Barbara. I'm your host. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as DeevaS, DeevaS. And I would love to hear from you. We have a podcast group in Ravelry. It's the Flame and Fiber podcast group. There aren't very many of us there and not much is happening, but if you'd like to join us, that would be wonderful, and that's where you can find the show notes for this show, because I don't have a blog or anything, so that's the place to find them. Easy peasy, and I also put a link there to the podcast, but you may have already found the podcast if you're going to the Ravelry group. I would really like to thank anybody who's come back after watching episodes 1 and 2. I really appreciate that. I get so excited when I get a subscriber. I cannot tell you. My poor husband, I have 23 subscribers. And I am genuinely excited. So thank you so much if you come back. And if you're just finding me and trying me out, I hope you enjoy the podcast. At the end of episode 2, I indicated that I was planning on doing podcasts every 2 weeks. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I really want to be good at podcasting, and I want to do a nice podcast. And the way to get better at something, as we all know, those of us who craft and make things and do things that, are outside our comfort zone sometimes, the more often you practice, the better you're going to be. So I've decided I'm going to try to podcast every week for a while and hopefully get better and learn some new podcasting skills. And I hope to make a better experience for my viewers and my fellow makers and knitters and crafters out there. So that's my plan. I hope it works. And in theory, maybe I will have somewhat shorter episodes. My first 2 episodes were a little over an hour. So in theory, once a week, maybe they'll be a little shorter. I don't know if that's good or bad for you. I know I kind of look forward to the hour-long podcasts I watch because I sit there and knit and listen and, but there are many shorter podcasts that I really enjoy. So for some people, they like to have a shorter podcast. So I have no idea. I'm a talker. So it's very possible this is still going to be an hour every week. That may be like a crazy amount of time, but whatever. So anyway, this is a knitting podcast and some spinning, and it's called Flame and Fiber because I also do lampworking, although I'm on hiatus from the lampworking, so I don't have any new beads to show you. Lampworking is the art of melting glass on a torch and turning it into beads and things. I make beads for the most part. So not much lampworking at this juncture, but my husband says you better get some flame in that Flame and Fiber podcast. So one of these days, in a week or 2, I'm going to make some beads and ask him to film me while I'm making the beads. And maybe by then I will have figured out how to add more than one film clip into my podcast. And so that will be a new learning experience for me. Teach yourself. If you watch the Notorious podcast, you recognize that. Teach yourself. So I'll figure out how to add a separate video in, and hopefully that will work in the next couple weeks. Meanwhile, I am wearing one of my finished objects. This is the Deco City shawl, and I'm going to stand up so you can see it because, of course, the fun part is in the back, and I hope you can see this when I'm standing up. I kind of practiced this, so I think you can see. And the detail, I wore a blue underneath so you could see the details, the beautiful Art Deco detail of the design of this shawl. And I'm learning a little bit. My flame, I tried to make a shawl pin. I'm relatively new to making shawls, and I wore a few shawls last winter, but not too many, and I've never actually used a shawl pin. So I did this little prototype, proof of concept, to see if I could do a shawl pin, which I think I can. I also proved that I can't do them this way because I actually chipped this bead when I was making this. Oh, excuse me. So anyway, this is a little proof of concept for a shawl pin. So that's my lamp working for the show. It's kind of a pretty iridescent bead, and I think the colors go great. I do like blue with this sort of gorgeous fall pumpkin-y color. And in fact, I'm considering this a pumpkin color, so I intend to enter this in the pumpkin cowl that Opera Joe of the Stringing the High Notes podcast is doing. I have to go out and check the Once Upon a Corgi podcast because I haven't seen that yet, and so I need to check it out because I have to be a member of both groups to qualify, and I would be shocked if I don't love Once Upon a Corgi, but I'm not going to, join her group if that's podcast not for me, just to enter this shawl, but I will be shocked because there are very few podcasts that I don't enjoy. So I'm going to check out Once Upon a Corgi, and then I'm going to enter this into the pumpkin cowl. I mean, it's got stripes like a pumpkin, but it's not a pumpkin. It's actually Art Deco, and you've seen this before because I was working on this in my last two podcasts. So I finished it, and I'm so delighted. It's the Deco City shawl by Amy Vanderlaar, and it is in the volume 15 of Pom Pom Porter. That's their copy of it. But I'm so happy with it. I really enjoyed it. The only thing is, like I said, I haven't made that many shawls, and this is the smallest shawl that I have made, I think. I did make the small size of the amulet shawl, the one that's the Helen Stewart's Shawl Society. So I'm not sure how this one will. Oh, this one looks nice around the neck too, so that's probably how I'll end up wearing it. But when you wear it like this, you lose that whole beautiful Art Deco. So maybe I'll sometimes have a little shoulder wrap so people can see the beautiful Art Deco design on this. But I'm really loving it. This is my handmade yarn that I made from Seven Sisters fiber. I bought at the New Jersey Sheep and Wool Show in 2015. And it has camel and merino and silk. It is really yummy. And I find it really satisfying to knit with my hand spun. So I've started doing that more. I hadn't been doing it very much, so that is fun. The other finished object I have is something that you didn't see because it is tiny little. It's a little newborn baby hat. The color is getting a little bit blown out. It's a little darker than that, more sagey, but this is the itty bitty 123. It's the 123 Baby Beanie by Lisa Seifert, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry. I could not resist it. I mean, look at those gorgeous, sweet babies. I mean, who's not going to want to knit that that hat? Oh, they're so adorable. Anyway, I emailed her because it says for personal use only. So I emailed Lisa and asked if it's okay to do this pattern for charity. And she replied, absolutely, make as many as you want, which was very nice. And I'll tell you the truth. If it weren't for the podcast, I probably wouldn't even have emailed her and asked her. I would have just assumed that charity would have been all right. And so I wasn't shocked when she said yes. But, if I wasn't doing a podcast, I would just make the hats and send them. And who would know? And, I wouldn't feel bad about that, to tell you the truth. But because I'm on a podcast, I thought, I better check and see what she thinks about that. I've been noticing those little notices at the bottom, for personal use only or whatever, like she has on hers, all rights reserved for personal use only. I recently bought a pattern, and it said that, not to sell the pattern, which I understand, or give it away. I mean, it's an electronic thing, and, I understand. Although, to tell you the truth, I don't think I would hesitate to lend a knitting book I bought to my sister-in-law who knits. I guess I need to think about that, but I probably wouldn't. But anyway, so don't reproduce the pattern. I understand that. But then it said you can't sell anything that you made from this pattern. And I don't know how I feel about that, to tell you the truth. Not that I'm ever going to make any knitting to sell, because I'm not. But it seems to me that if I bought the pattern, I should be able to sell something I make from the pattern, if I want to. Now, I can understand not asking people not to sell things if you've given a free pattern. I mean, why should someone else make money from something you designed if you're not making money from something you designed? So that makes sense to me. But somehow saying not to sell something you've knit from a pattern that you paid for, I'm not sure how I feel about that. So, what do you think? Is that okay to restrict that? I mean, I'm a lamp worker, so we don't have patterns in lamp working, but we have tutorials. And people write up tutorials, and they're a lot of work, as is, of course, designing a pattern. Because they have to take pictures all along the way to, it's people who have kind of a signature bead, and they take pictures along the way to show you how to make this bead. And very often they're kind of, famous beads, famous in the lamp working world, which, every world has its, celebrities. And in lamp working, they certainly do. And, and their tutorials are usually like $25. But, if you sell your beads, you can sell the beads from a tutorial. Now, everybody, they're never going to be exactly the same, and and you would want to put your own spin on it and things like that, because who wants to be a copycat and try to sell things? But I don't know, beads are different than knitting. It seems to me if you paid for the pattern, you should be able to sell the knitting. But I'm never going to do it. It's just an intellectual exercise. But I was just surprised when I read that and thought, I don't know how I feel about that if I paid for the pattern. Certainly, free pattern, I understand. Why should people be making money off of your work if you're not? But anyway, so I made this adorable little hat, and this is, I started making these, I recently spent some time with my sister-in-law, Vicki, who is on the board of an organization in the San Diego, California area called Gently Hugged, gentlyhugged.org if you're interested, and they provide sort of care packages for new mothers as they leave the hospital. They work with organizations who are helping, poor young women. And so they put together care packages with hats and blankets and onesies and all kinds of things that babies will need in their first year of life for mothers who don't have much. And so I said, sure, she was crocheting a blanket. She said, they don't really need many blankets. We've got lots of blankets. So I said, okay, well, I'll make a hat. So I made a hat, and it's really cute. It didn't take me very long, and I just finished it. And then I got an email from Vicki who said, I was just at a board meeting, and we have lots and lots of hats. So we don't really need any more hats, but we need bibs and booties. So I said, okay, well, I finished the hat, but I'll switch to bibs and booties. So I've been looking up patterns. And I will be making some really cute bibs, which makes me think maybe I'll make a couple for my brand new granddaughter, Sammy, who is only, 7 or 8 weeks old. 7 weeks, not 2 months yet. And because they looked really cute, and there are a bunch of really cute bib patterns. I hadn't even thought about knitting bibs. I thought about knitting booties, and I'll tell you the truth, I'm not sure how I feel about knitting booties. There's something about it, I don't know, they're cute. They're really cute, but I'm not sure I'm feeling like it. But a bib sounds like something I would do. But this is an adorable pattern. It's the 123 Baby Beanie by Lisa Seifert, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry. And it is the cutest thing. And I only put 2 rows of garter. She showed it with 3 or none or 1. But I don't remember what needle I did this on. Looks like about oops. Here's the one I did it on. I have a lot of trouble reading these. Oh, it's a US 5, and this is my Addy Clicks. And I like, well, I'm agnostic about the Addy Clicks. I think I don't have a problem with them coming apart. Some people do, and I understand that. But I got to tell you, there are many projects where I said, oh, I'll use my Addy Clicks, and I grab them, and I don't end up using them. The tips of these are very blunt. And I find that I need something a little sharper very often. So the Addy Clicks, while I enjoy working with them, I find very often that they're not the needle for the project I'm looking for. But they worked great for the hat, and I have no doubt they'll be fine for any bibs I make. This yarn for the hat, I'm going to try to remember to show you. Of course, this ball is not interesting, but I'm going to try to remember to show you my balls of yarn because I keep forgetting to do that, and it's so rude. This is called Classic Wool, and of course I don't have the ball band, but Classic, and it's, I think, something like 85% acrylic and 15% wool or something like that. I use this for my new granddaughter Sammy's vivid blanket I made her before she was 4, which was fun. What a fun pattern. Tin Can Knits. Love that one. But anyway, so I made that hat for Gently Hugged, and I will be switching over to making bibs and maybe booties, but bibs, and send a little package off to my sister-in-law. That's gentlyhugged.org. I'll put that in the show notes. So those are the two things I finished. My Deco City shawl, which I'm loving, and that cute little hat, which, you know, doesn't take much time. So, and I'm actually drinking this time. This is my Christmas mug I got from my friend Linda. Hi, Linda. And it turns out it's the perfect size and shape because I switched, this is coffee. I switched to an AeroPress to make my coffee. I make 1 cup at a time, and a big, sturdy cup, I make it straight into the top. And I'm really liking that AeroPress. I'm liking the coffee. It's less, you know, sort of acidy. You know, and I like coffee, don't get me wrong. But it's a little bit less acidy, so I find that I enjoy it all the way down to the last drop, even if it gets cold, which my coffee tends to do because I get sidetracked and easily distracted. And so, but even when it's cold at the bottom, I enjoy drinking it. I do drink it with cream and Splenda. Which I didn't like when I was using like my Keurig coffee or other kinds of coffee. So AeroPress, I'm really liking it. And I have this little individual coffee grinder. It's just a little cylinder, and I have to grind my coffee every time I make a pot of coffee. So I'm getting a little bit of an upper body workout. At least that's what I say. Oh, I have an itchy nose. I'm sorry. Okay, so those are the things I finished. I'm so excited. But I am working on some things. Last week, I guess it was last week, my last episode, I reviewed Amy Herzog's You Can Knit That book, which I liked a lot and was very glad I bought. And I'm interested in the set-in sleeves because I want to make this cardigan, which... Oops. I forget what it's called. It's called the Downy Cardigan. And eventually I want to make that cardigan, and I'll be talking about that later because that's in the what's coming up. Or that's in my goodies section because I got goodies in the mail. But starting with, she recommends that if you're new to a technique, which I think I am, I don't think I've done a set-in sleeve before, to do a child size. And I have a 3-year-old granddaughter who I make sweaters for, so I am making her the Birdie Cardi Mini. And turning out really cute. So here's the back. All done. Red is her favorite color. So the back is all done. It seems really long, but of course it's stockinette, so it's rolled out. So let's look. It's a size 3-4, and she is just turned 3 in August, so this might last her a couple of years, but, you know, I'm all about rolling up sleeves and things, so I don't have any problem with that. And I'm doing the fronts 2 at a time, and it's got this little crossed over stitch detail on the front, and it's turning out really cute. I'm really enjoying it. This yarn, and I'm going to remember to show you the yarn, but again, this yarn isn't that exciting to look at in the ball, unlike, you know, the hand-painted gorgeous yarns, which I hope I remember to show you. This yarn is Simplicity by Haiku, and it is 55% merino superwash, 28% acrylic, and 17% nylon. I am really enjoying knitting this yarn. It's not cheap though, $9 for 50 grams. But you can put it in the dryer, and like I said before, for the granddaughters, it's all about ease of care because, you know, I don't want them to have to worry about that. So I am really enjoying making this cardigan. I expect I'll be done with this by the time I podcast next. I hope to be. If not, I'll be piecing it together. So I'm making the fronts 2 at a time. I'm doing this on my Chiagu interchangeables. These are size 10.5. So I did a gauge swatch. And who knows? I mean, this may be huge on her. And so who knows if my gauge swatch actually helped me or not. I don't know. But I did a gauge swatch. And oh, these aren't the 10.5s. I'm so sorry. These are size 8. These are size 8. Size 8. I think the pattern called for 7, and I did a gauge swatch in the 7, and I got, you know, I guess I'm a tight knitter, a little bit of a tight knitter, and so I didn't get gauge, and I thought, oh, let me do some calculations, and then I said, wait a minute, let me just move up a needle size and see if that helps. See how cute that is? And it did. So according to the gauge swatch, I'm on track, but it is a 3-4, so it's going to be a little bit big on her. She's a 3T. Like I said, she just turned 3, so. But she does like red, and she was happy to, I showed it to her, and, you know, she's 3, but she liked it, and she's liked my other sweaters. So I've been telling you I haven't knit very many sweaters. I don't know how many times I said that. I've knit 3 for myself, all top-down raglan. The 1 cardigan, the super bulky grandpa cardigan that you saw last week. And 1 for my daughter-in-law, the same pattern. So those are the adult sweaters that I made. But I have made at least 3 sweaters for my granddaughter. So I have made other sweaters, but they've been kind of tiny. The next one I'm making will be for Sammy, my little tiny one. And I have other yarn back there for her. So the other thing I am working on I got my notes right here, so sorry if I'm looking away. Ooh, I'm supposed to sit in front of that bookshelf because it's so messy. Put my head there, you can't see it so much. See if that works, I don't know. So the next thing I'm working on are the Petunia Dursley double eyelet socks. This is a free pattern from Erica Lauder. She's the designer behind the Hermione's Everyday Socks. And these are the socks. They're getting a little blown out. I wonder if I turn off this, hold on. If I turn off this light, will the colors be better? They're a little better. Am I too dark now? No, I don't think so. Maybe that light. It's actually sunny today. It's been dreary and rainy for the last 4 days. So I have my window, my shades up, so I'm getting some natural light. So maybe that's close enough. These are called, the yarn is Little Yellow Uke in her BFL Soprano sock. And it's 75% BFL, 25% nylon, and it is, and I'm going to remember to show you the ball. It is, all right, I have one more light to turn off. Let's see how this works. Well, I'm still not too dark. That's better, I guess. But it's a beautiful soft color called New Blooms. And can you hear that? I think you can hear that. My husband is downstairs trying to put his office back together. I'm sorry about that noise. That's another story. Let me finish the socks and then I'll tell you the story about the drilling in the room below me. So this is a beautiful yarn. This is Little Yellow Uke. She has a lovely podcast. She seems like a wonderful woman, and I enjoy her podcast very much. And so anyway, I do feel a little bit like these socks are never going to end. I'm knitting these on Addy Rockets in the size 0, US 0, which is a 2.0 millimeter. And I upped the stitch count from my normal 64, although I think my next one, I'm going to, that may be a little too small for me. But anyway, I went up to 70. And so I think these are going to be all right. They may be stretched a little bit. But the thing is, here's my progress keeper, the pretty little progress keeper that says Made with Love that I got from Zena with the yarn. I have added the heels and knit this much, but it feels like I'm knitting on these socks forever. I mean, so anyway. Anyway, here's my socks. I'm going to go ask my husband to wait a few minutes to finish his drilling, and then I will be back. I'm not pausing very well. Why won't it pause? Oh, because I don't have a touch screen. Hello. All right, now I'm pausing. Okay, I'm back. I can't believe I'm like pushing on the screen. Why won't this pause? Why won't this pause? Oh well. So I have a lot of things to learn. Oops, got to cover up my bookshelf again. There. All right, so those are my socks that I'm working on. And the last thing I'm working on is a new knit that I started just the other day and have been kind of going crazy on. I had made the beautiful quill shawl from Helen Stewart's Shawl Society out of that lovely alpaca I have a ton of. I mean, a ton. And so I thought, and I really love the shawl. And I mean, as I was talking to you about it last week, I thought, oh, you know, maybe I'll give this away because it's really cushy and wonderful. And then I'm like, what are you, crazy? You love this shawl. Why are you thinking about giving it away? But I have, you know, gifts coming up. I have got birthdays and Christmas between now and the end of December. So everything I'm doing, I'm kind of thinking, oh, is this a gift? You know, if I haven't decided ahead of time, it still, you know, comes to my mind. So I thought, oh, well, I'll make another cushy shawl with that yarn. And, you know, I'll give that away. Or I'll give the quill away, whichever one, you know, I want to give away or whatever. So once again, I had trouble finding a pattern that I wanted. I didn't really want to make the quill shawl again. I thought maybe it'd be a little boring to make this, you know, make it right away again. I've never done, well, that's not true. I made 2 talismans. The first shawl pattern, I made 2 talismans in July when that pattern first came out, or June. But anyway, I thought, oh, you know, I won't make the same thing. I don't know if I'll be bored, or maybe it'll be boring for you guys for me to be knitting the same thing. Kind of interesting that doing a podcast affects your knitting in such a way like, oh, is that going to be interesting to talk about? If not, then maybe I'll do something else. So I'm learning a lot about myself and my knitting and podcasting all at the same time. I do have a glare in my glasses. I'm sorry about that. So anyway, I was trying to figure out what cushy, warm, squishy shawl I should make. And once again, I went to my hand spun. I have all this hand spun. I mean, I don't have tons and tons and tons of it because I'm not that fast of a spinner, but I do have some hand spun, and it's just collecting. I've only made a few things with my hand spun. So anyway, I decided to make a shawl out of my hand spun. And the hand spun, here's my tag. Here's my tag for my hand spun. This is a system that I learned from Amy Beth of the Fat Squirrel Speaks. She started doing this for her hand spun, and I thought it was a great idea, so I copied her completely, and I'll tell you about it. But it's from Amy Beth of the Fat Squirrel Speaks, one of my absolute favorite podcasts. I found her very early when I first started watching podcasts last year in November, and I binge watched all her episodes, and she's like up to 170. I mean, I watched everything that was on YouTube. And her podcasts are about a half an hour. So it was quite a few hours, but I was busy making my Christmas presents and stuff. I had a lot of time, and but she's really funny. She starts her podcast, hello, welcome to Fat Squirrel Speaks. It's really hilarious. And, so I'm watching these every half an hour. Hello, welcome to the end. And my husband came in and said, who is that Joanne Worley woman? But she's hilarious. If you don't watch her podcast, you should. She's an excellent podcaster, and I love her podcast, and she talks about all kinds of stuff. And it was interesting to watch them kind of from the very beginning. She, sort of watched the progression. Now she, apparently she only does her podcast every 2 weeks. When you watch them one after the other, they come pretty quick. So now I have to wait every 2 weeks because I watched all her podcasts. But anyway, this is called the Goldest Stock. You can get these at on Amazon. That's where I got mine. And they're the plasticky wristbands that you sometimes get at events, because you can't undo them. You have to cut them to take them off. And so they have different colors and stuff. And you often get these at a concert or some kind of an event. But they're plastic. And so she suggested that you write on them with a Sharpie right after you're done spinning them when you skein them up, because then you have to wash them and you have to thwack them and, do all this stuff with your hand spun. And all those things take time. There's time in between when you spin it and when you do stuff with it, and you can forget what is in, that yarn. And I started taking notes this year. My notes aren't great. I need to take a spinning class to find out how to really do that right. But anyway, so this yarn, I know by reading my tag, is Into the World yarn. The colorway is Moriarty, which I love. I did it in a 2-ply. It's a 60% Polworth, 40% Tussa silk. And this one, I had 2 skeins. This one skein was 182 yards. And I did this in June. So I know that from my tag. I do not have the Into the World tag that I got with the fiber. But, I'm going to show you my yarn. I remembered. So this is the yarn I spun. And it is a pretty thick yarn. And it's not necessarily very consistent. But I am in love with this yarn. It feels like a dream, and I am enjoying knitting it so much. I am knitting the Bone Yard Shawl by Stephen West. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. And it's a very straightforward pattern. This is actually my first Stephen West that I've done. I do have yarn to make a, I had a plan to make an exploration station that I got the yarn in at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Show in May. But I haven't made it yet. I don't know what's stopping me. I never knit brioche, for one thing, but I just haven't started. And there is even a cow going on, a exploration station cow between Kristen of Wool and Vine Yarns and the Yarngasm podcast and Laura of the Dyer's Notebook podcast. They're having an exploration station knit along. But by the time they were doing that, I was already thinking about, you know, Christmas presents and stuff. But I wanted to make another big squishy shawl. And I picked that. And to tell you the truth, once I started working on it, I didn't set it down. I mean, I literally started this the day before yesterday. And I am loving this shawl. I had originally thought I might not want the yarn overs down the spine. This is a triangular shawl. I might not want the yarn overs down the spine, but the beginning of it was so fiddly with my big needles. This is the one I'm doing on the 10.5-inch Chiago needles, interchangeable. And it was so fiddly with those big needles on that little start. And I was having trouble making my make one right and make one left. I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing this. I can do a yarn over. No problem. So I'm doing it with yarn overs, and I'm fine with it. And I'm doing yarn overs along the edge as well. So that matches. But I am loving how this yarn of mine is knitting up. I am so excited about this shawl. And so I had put it together. I only had about 350 yards of this handspun, this Moriarty from Into the World. And so I had gotten, I have some purple handspun of mine that there is purple in here. You know, I had some purple and I thought, well, maybe that will go with it. And I did the first alternate stripe with that purple, and I didn't like it. The purple was way too intense. It, you know, didn't match the sort of dusty color of this Moriarty at all. And so I found I had another yarn, and I'm remembering to show you. This is showing up a little brighter than it is. It's more of a dusty color. Actually, well, my shirt's maybe a little brighter than it is. It's more dusty looking than that. Sorry, I'm swinging it all around because this opposite thing. This is a little bit brighter. I can't turn anything else off because, well, I guess my overhead light is on. But anyway, it's a little dustier than it's showing up on the screen. And I'm using that for the garter stripes, and it'll have a garter border around the outside of it, and that'll be this. This is Succulent Fiber. This is a really nice yarn. It's 50% merino, 50% mulberry silk. It's a worsted weight, and it's in the colorway River Ash. I got this yarn as part of my subscription of the Fiberista Club when I was getting yarn instead of fiber. I switched over to fiber once I started spinning. But the yarn is lovely, and I was hesitating to use it in this shawl because I only need one skein of it, and I have 2 of this. So I had 2 skeins for 400 yards, and but I've had it for a year, and I haven't done anything with it, and so I decided I'm using it. You know what? So you snooze, you lose. If I wanted something with 400 yards, I should have made it by then. So I'm calling this, I just put it in a project page up for this, I'm calling this my Roll the Dice Boneyard Shawl, because as I started it, the pattern says like every 12, it's a free pattern, so I can tell you, You know, you're just doing stockinette stitch with the increases in the spine and along the edges because it's a regular triangular shaped shawl. And every 12th row, right side row or wrong side row, you knit instead of purl, so you end up with 1 row of garter, 1 garter bump essentially, and then you do 12 more and you do another one. And I needed to use more of the succulent fiber because I don't have enough of the Into the World Moriarty that I spun. So I needed to use more of that second skein. So I looked at some of the project pages and people had done stripes on them and they looked great. But most of the people who did stripes, they did a certain number and then, you know, 5 rows of garter and then a number and 5 rows of garter. And after I did the first section of the shawl with the 2 rows of garter, I realized that I didn't want to do something very regular. I didn't want a regular pattern. And, you know, I wanted something a little more random. So what I did was, and I forgot to bring them up, I took 3 of my husband's D6 dice, and 2 of them red, 1 of them white. And so I roll the 3 dice, and whatever number they total to, I knit in the Moriarty, and whatever number is on the white dice, I knit in the alternate color. And I do reserve the right to re-roll because I did this. I forget how many this was. I think it was only like 6 rows and then 1. I think it was 4 and 1, 1, and the white dice was the 1. And then I had more, and I got 4. The white dice was a 4, and then I got not quite as many, but the white dice was a 3. And then I rolled in again, and it was going to be kind of the same, so I re-rolled. And so right now I'm in the middle of 11 for the Moriarty. And when I'm done with that, I will be doing 5 garter rows of the succulent fiber. So the reason I did that is because I really wanted the Moriarty to have more rows. And this way doesn't exactly ensure that that will happen, but it's very highly unlikely that I'm going to have more rows of the succulent fiber than the hand spun, because I do the three dice worth and then the 1 dice worth. And in theory, if I had 6 succulent fiber and the next roll I ended up rolling 3, which you could, I would have fewer hand spun rows coming after. But I'll probably re-roll that anyway. So it's not random because I reserve the right to re-roll, but it is making it, I think, a little more interesting, at least interesting for me. And then, so I'm going to do this as long as I have my hand spun, and then I will add the garter stitch border around, and I'll play that by ear to see how much, you know, that is. But I think this is going to be a big shawl, and I love it. The Polworth silk is such a gorgeous yarn, and the succulent fiber is beautiful too. It's got silk in it, but you can't, I don't know if you can really see, but this yarn I spun has a sheen to it that is so lovely. So this is going to be very squishy. You're not hearing me say I'm going to give this one away, so that makes the quill shawl more likely to be a gift, because this one, you know, does that make me selfish? I don't want to give away my hand spun. I think it's because I don't have very much hand spun. You can't see that sheen. I haven't made very many things with hand spun, so maybe I'm selfish. I really hate the concept of a selfish knitter. I read somewhere somebody says, you know, nobody golfs for other people. You know, why are you, you know, and it's the first thing. Well, the second question, if somebody sees you knitting, the first question is, what are you knitting? And the second question is, who is it for? It's like, you know, I don't know. Seems like you should be able to just knit for yourself. And with the whole handmade wardrobe thing that people are doing, knitting for yourself starts to maybe sound less selfish to people if you say, no, I'm knitting my own wardrobe. And I certainly get a lot of pleasure out of wearing my my handmade socks. And so I'm big on that. So anyway, so that is what I have on my needles right now. And I'm going to keep rolling the dice on that Roll the Dice Boneyard shawl. So coming up, my future knitting, I am going back to working on some Christmas presents. I alluded to some Christmas presents, one Christmas present I started, and I didn't want to talk about it in the first episode because I wanted my daughter to be able to watch the first episode. But she's a busy person, and she probably isn't watching every episode because she's not a knitter. But she might be. So, or my daughter-in-law. I don't think either of them have time to watch my podcast. But if Christy and Allison, if you're watching this, it's time to stop and wait for the next episode. Well, you might not be able to watch that one either. So anyway, go away because unless you don't care about being surprised for Christmas. So, for both of these girls, I am making them the suffragette hat. And this is also one of the Art Deco patterns. You can see I Xeroxed it so I could write all over it. In the volume 15 of the Pom Pom magazine, the whole thing was open. I think this is the cutest thing. Now this hat, I actually have one finished. I left it downstairs, so I'll show it to you next time. For my daughter, and both my daughter and my daughter-in-law saw the pattern and thought they would be interested in it. And as it happens, they both have cute hairdos, kind of like this young woman, where this hat would go really well. And so they'll look so cute in this hat. I tried to knit it in the alpaca. I keep trying to knit that alpaca. And, but I know better. You can't knit a hat in alpaca. It would have been the second hat. That was the second hat I tried. I knit a hat for my mother last year for her birthday in alpaca that I spun myself. Oh my God, that was the saddest, lamest looking hat I felt. I gave it to her. She loved it. But the next time I saw her, she said, I wonder if you can fix this hat. I said, Ma, I can't fix this hat. Here, I knit you something else. And I replaced it. So anyway, I knit Christie's. My daughter's, and I will show you that next week when I figure out how to block it and all that stuff. But I'm getting ready. The next one I'm going to make is Allison's. And like I said, I tried to use this alpaca, and I thought, oh, this will be great. I'll use the alpaca. Oh, that's a little brighter than it is. And that did not work. So I was kind of psyched to start at that point. And then I remembered I had some Sweet Georgia yarn, which is what this is. And I had bought this Sweet Georgia. I have it in purple, which is Alice's favorite color, and teal, which is my daughter's favorite color, because I had some idea that I was going to try to learn brioche, and I would make a hat. With teal on one side and purple on the other. They went so well together. I don't have the teal with me right this minute. I'll show you them both in the next podcast. But I thought, well, I'll get other yarn when I'm ready to make that brioche, or I'll go shopping in my stash because I have a lot of yarn. Although I will say I have most of that yarn is fingering weight. I have some yarns that aren't fingering weight, but most of it is fingering weight. And this is 256 yards for 115 grams. So, Superwash DK, duh. So it's a DK, which is what the hat calls for. So I am gonna make a suffragette hat for this one. The purple is for Allison. I made Christie's. I haven't blocked it, and it seems a little bit big. It's too big for me. It's a little bit big for me, but I don't have any hair, and it, you know, she has a lot more hair than me, and my husband thinks her head is bigger than mine. I don't know if that's the case or not. So, but in case that's true, I have decided that I'm not going to try to make it a little smaller, to tear it back and make it a little smaller. But I'm also not going to weave in the ends till she's here at Christmas, so that it'll be easier to take it back and make it a little smaller at Christmas if it turns out that it doesn't fit her very well. And I had some idea I was going to make Allison's a little bit smaller. And I don't remember what I thought I would do to do that. Maybe I'll go down in needle size, because so I knit Christie's on these, which are Chiagu. I have so much trouble reading these. Lately I've just been jamming them in a needle sizer. This may be a 7. But I don't have a needle sizer right with me, so I'm not exactly sure, but I will pay attention to that and let you know. Oh, I didn't show you my bags. This bag is from the Crafty Toads podcast, the Toad Hollow NJ. I'm thinking this is my Halloween bag. Isn't this cute? With poisons and bat juice and eye of newt. So cute. And it's a perfect size for a hat or for socks or whatever. And my Isabel sweater is in my Lone Larch Designs bag, which I really love. And there's the little pin I got with it that is Lego Jenny sitting in front of her Lone Larch doing her podcast. And my Little Bobbins bag has my socks. Oh, and my baby hat is in my penguin bag, which I made. And it's my favorite bag that I made. This pattern, I used Hugh Loco. Nicole from the Hugh Loco podcast published a pattern and directions on how to make project bags, which I thought was very sweet of her, considering part of how she makes her living is selling project bags, and it looks like her project bag, so pretty interesting. But she also had some tutorials about how to dye, and she's a dyer, so she's just a very generous person who's telling the world these are things that you can do if you want to do them. All right, so that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm working in. So the next thing is the goodies I got. And I talked about this yarn last time. This is the Techno. This is the it's called Whipped Up Alpaca. And it's oh gosh, 68% baby alpaca, 10% extra fine merino, and 22% silk. And this is from Blue Sky Alpaca. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous yarn. And I had, oh, that's a little brighter. It's not quite that bright. I don't know if there are any places it's not. Yeah, this one is a little closer. Anyway. So that sweater that I want to make out of Amy Herzog's book, the Downy sweater, is gorgeous, and the sample is made out of this Techno Blue Sky Alpaca Techno yarn. And I have used this. In fact, I've used it in this color because I got it from Yarn Box. I was a member of Yarn Box for a long time, which I'll talk about at some point. And their Luxe box had Blue Sky Alpaca Techno and Metallico in it at one point, and got 2 skeins of this. And I made a hat out of it, and I ended up not loving the hat, but I loved the yarn, and I gave the hat to my mother-in-law because she loved the hat. So that worked out great. But it's a beautiful, squishy yarn. It's almost like a tube. It's, you know, I'm not surprised they call it whipped up alpaca, because anyway, it's a gorgeous, but it's not cheap. It's definitely not a cheap yarn. And so to make that giant sweater in my size was prohibitively expensive, but websyarn.com had some discontinued colors of Techno for half price. And so I ordered this yellow thinking I might like the yellow, or if I didn't, then maybe I could overdye it. And turned out they were having a bulky yarn sale, so I even got it for a little bit less. So it was less than half price. And then I got it, and I'm liking the yellow. I really, you know, I'm thinking about the yellow, and in fact, I'm pretty sure I'm just going to knit it in yellow. My husband liked the yellow, and he doesn't even like yellow, and he thought, oh, that would be, you know, it's a big sweater, so it may end up being a lot of yellow. Who knows? But right now, I'm loving the yellow, and I think, but I have to be sure before I knit it, because I don't think I can really dye the sweater after it's knit. I'm not sure, you know, because it's going to be really big. But I'm kind of liking the yellow, and the yellow would work in my life, really, because to tell you the truth, I'm retired, and I discovered when you're retired, your whole clothes thing completely changes. Because I don't go out a lot. I mean, I'm not a hermit. I walk my dog every day, and, you know, but I don't go out a lot, and I find that what I do is that, you know, sort of at some point when I need clean clothes, I pick an outfit, and, you know, and I go out, and I'm out for an hour or 2 or whatever I'm doing, not very long usually. And so when I get home, I change back into my sweatpants and my whatever, you know, my loungy around the house kind of clothes, and I lay my outfit out nice and neat, and then the next time I need to go out, which is the next day or 2 days or whenever later, I wear the same outfit. So I find that, you know, and I do that for a few days, and, you know, when I'm done, I've worn it for, you know, 6 hours or 8 hours, and then, you know, I put it in the laundry or whatever, and then the next time I go out, I pick another outfit. So I'm finding that I need way fewer clothes than I did when I was working, by a lot, because, you know, when you're working, you know, so I can make a yellow sweater, which will make me smile, you know, on a winter day. It'll be nice to put on a bright yellow, you know, goes with my hair pretty well. And I don't know how yellow makes me look, but maybe I'll find out. And since I'm not going to work, I mean, if I had a bright yellow sweater and wore it to work, you know, how often can you wear a bright yellow sweater to work without people saying, oh, not that sweater again? But, you know, the grocery store, they don't care. The doctor's office, they don't care. The vet, you know, wherever I go, they're not going to care. And so it seems like you can get a lot more use out of a bright, warm yellow sweater in a retired lifestyle than you can, you know, sort of when you're working every day. I could be completely wrong, but I think I may go with the yellow. I kind of like the yellow. And, you know, so currently my plan is I'm going to make that sweater out of this yellow. I'm not sure when, because that's a big commitment, and I just finished the sweater, and I have Christmas presents to do and everything. But on the other hand, this is really yummy yarn, and I really like that sweater. So I might be tempted to cast it on after I've finished Isabel's Birdie Cardi Mini, which is a set and sleeve design, which is what the Downy cardigan is too. So once I'm done with Isabel's sweater, I may be tempted to cast on this sweater. I should probably pick up the sweater I'm in the middle of making for Dennis, which I told him I'd mentioned it on the podcast. He said, yeah, I said, then I'll feel like obliged to start working on it a little bit. And he said, or else it'll be a running joke on your podcast. I don't want it to be a running joke because it's really lovely. So maybe I will show you Dennis's sweater next week. So the things I'm going to talk about next week are Dennis's sweater, which then maybe I'll, even if I did an inch every week, he might eventually get it. And the suffragette hats that I'm going to make the girls for Christmas, because Christie's was done before the Grocery Girls Knitworthy Cal started, but it does qualify for Zena's Little Yellow Uke Be Prepared Cal, and Allison's will qualify for both. And in fact, I saw the Bakery Bears are just going to have a Christmas knitting cal too, so we'll see about that. So anyway, this is goodies that came into the house. I got 12 skeins of this. Should be enough, because my size in the book said 11, so I got an extra one just to be safe. I also got one more ball of the big wool silk, which is the yarn that my super bulky grandpa sweater was made out of, and so I got another skein to make 2 pockets. I did buy the buttons for that. I haven't put the buttons on, and now I'm gonna add pockets. So I'm planning on doing that. I hope I do it this week. Maybe that's another thing I'll show you. My finished with pockets super bulky grandpa sweater. So, and I even sent them a note and said if you could give me lot 2205, that would be great, and they did. That was very sweet of them. So I got the right lot number. So the other things that came in my mail, I'm sorry for the crinkling. Oh, I'm very sorry for the crinkling. This is my Fiberista Club. This was my last shipment from the Fiberista Club. I was in the fiber. I just have so much fiber I had to stop. I'm in, well, I'll show you. So this is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. 70% Falkland, 30% camel. And I'm sure it's the natural colors of these. So it's like creamy with the darker going through it. I got 200-gram skeins. It is so beautiful. I'm sure it's not dyed. One thing about this club that it's kind of unfortunate. He doesn't do, of course, I've stopped going to the Ravelry page for this club, so he may have changed this. The guy who runs this name is Hunter. He doesn't do a reveal post where he shows all the different colors of yarn and all the different colors of fiber that he's done. People sometimes post pictures of what they got in the mail, so sometimes you get to see some of them, but he doesn't do a big reveal post, which he should. He really should, because that's one of the things that revs people up, like in the Yarn Box thread. They get the reveal. He doesn't want to spoil it for people, but, just put spoiler. People don't have to look. So anyway, I mean, one nice thing about him, though, is if you don't like the color that you've gotten, oh, now I've got fiber in my face, you can email him and he'll exchange it for you, which I don't think most clubs will do. But the problem is he doesn't do a reveal post. So you're not sure what color you want to exchange it for. So that's a problem. I mean, I once exchanged, it seemed like every fiber I was getting was brown. Finally, I just emailed him and said, Hunter, please put no brown on my account. And I really would like to exchange this because it's like I got the same colors. And, they don't know what they're putting in. They don't keep track of each person's thing. So he was happy to do that, and I didn't get brown after that. Although this is brown, but it's a natural fiber. I'm sure everybody got exactly the same, and I love it, and so it's not a problem. But I exchanged that brown, and I just picked charcoal because of the name. I figured it's going to be gray, and I would rather have gray than brown. So anyway, if you and the succulent fibers that I'm using in my shawl, is from this. Back, you know, I started on the yarn side because that this is the club that started me spinning, because I was looking. He has gorgeous fiber, and you get 200. I mean, it's $45 a month or something. I'm not sure exactly anymore because I paid for 6 months in advance. So I mean, you know, so. But you get 200 grams of gorgeous fiber. Beautiful fiber. And the other, and you know, I really loved Into the World. So I joined her club for a few months. I think only 3. I'm not sure. Because I don't need fiber. I have so much fiber and I'm not spinning that fast. But this is Merino Yak Silk. It's the Luxe Fiber Club. And it is gorgeous. It's purple, and that's more of a teal blue than is showing on the screen. And purple and gray. It's got a little brown in it. And it is gorgeous. And this is going to spin up beautiful. One thing that I'm a little concerned about is I'm really loving that yarn, and that was Into the World, the Moriarty color that I'm putting in my Boneyard shawl. I love those colors, and I'm so excited about those colors. I love these colors. I'm very excited about these colors. But when I look at my fiber, apparently when I'm looking online, I'm really attracted to bright yellow and reds and bright pinks and things like that. And, but when I'm knitting on this yarn, I'm loving the blues and the purples and the darker, you know. I do know that I like fiber that starts with sort of a oatmeal colored, you know. I like that muted color, so I don't know. So I have to be more careful, excuse me while I lean over, more careful when I buy my fiber, because apparently I'm like a magpie and I'm attracted to these bright colors, but, you know, well, we'll see. I don't have a lot of yarn made out of the bright colors that I like. Here's the yarn I'm spinning at the moment. Case in point. I mean, this is gorgeous. It's got purples and pinks and yellow, and I think it's going to be wonderful, but it's not the only purple and pink and yellow I have in my stash, my fiber stash, let me tell you. And so I may be doing a purple and pink and yellow sweater, except my, you know, I'm relatively new spinner, and my yarns are not consistent enough to think I'm going to be able to. Anyway, this fiber is from Wool Gatherings. It's 40% camel, 40% merino, 20% silk. I talked about this in episode 1. I took Jacqueline Salem's advice to heart and just go for it. And, you know, so I have a lot of really gorgeous, wonderful fiber, amazing fiber that I wasn't spinning because, you know, I'm not a good enough spinner to spin that cashmere I have, or the yak, or the camel, or whatever it is, or the camel merino silk. So I decided, you know, go for it. I'm going to start spinning it, you know, and I'm actually pretty happy with the spin. So I decided I'm going to do a 3-ply, which I don't usually do. I don't know why I say that. I've done 3-plies. And so this is a third. Of course, I didn't start figuring out, oh, I want to do a 3-ply till after I was already started. So I'm hoping this is about a third. I've split the rest of it. And, you know, it's a pretty fine spin, so I'm hoping that I get, you know, come up with a sport or DK weight if I don't come up with a fingering. I have 200 grams of this fiber. A lot of times I don't do a 3-ply because I think I'm not going to end up with enough fiber. I mean, enough yarn. You know, you do 3-ply, you only get 1/3. You know, you get less length than if you do a 2-ply. But anyway, I'm planning on doing a 3-ply. So I have the second bobbin started, and then this is, in theory, the third bobbins worth, and I'll be working on that. And it's really a beautiful, beautiful fiber, and I'm enjoying it. And I am happy with the spin. I mean, it, you know, it may be a little overspun, but it's, who knows? We'll see. I have ordered an anything but Lazy Kate. I haven't been happy with the Lazy Kate I have. And so I'm hoping I'll actually get that. I ordered it a month ago. I finally heard from the person yesterday, so we'll see if I'm actually getting it. If I get it, I will show you on the next appropriate podcast. I think I need to stop talking. So even after a week, I'm still at an hour and 10 minutes. So I'm a talker. I think my podcasts are going to be an hour-ish, and I hope that's okay. I really want to thank you for stopping by. If you've come to the very end, then thank you, because I understand it's a big time commitment, but, you know, do it in chunks. I do that sometimes, you know, when I stop and go back. That's the nice thing about YouTube. It'll take you back where you left off. So I really want to thank you. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I will take any kind of constructive feedback. I want this to be a podcast you enjoy watching regularly, and I want to get better at it. So I'm very happy to hear any suggestions you might have for what I'm doing. You can see that I changed the angle of the camera. My sister-in-law advised me to do that. I was looking down, and now I'm not. So maybe that will be a little bit better. Anyway, so if you have any suggestions, I'm open to hear them. And thank you so much for stopping by. And check out sign up for the Ravelry group. That's where you'll find the show notes. There's absolutely no chatter happening there, so I'm not going to pretend that there's any kind of things going on, but eventually we're going to have giveaways and cows and things like that, and who knows, people, if you have advice, maybe I'll start an Ask Me Anything thread like other people do, not, you know, in case people want to know something. So anyway, I hope that you have lots of time this week to play with yarn and that you enjoy it and get joy from it. So happy knitting. Bye. I'm remembering I gotta use my mouse. I can't just touch the screen. Bye.